Hey, what's up, cats and kittens, and shout out to all my Cerebralites. It is me, the Cerebral Diva, and I'm back with another episode of RealiTEA, and that's TEA because I give it to you scalding hot. So grab your cups, grab your saucers, gather around, and let's all partake in this libation of RealiTEA. But before you go another further, do yourself a favor, and while you're at it, please do me a solid. Take a second, hit that subscribe button, and once you've done that, take another second to hit that tiny little bell so you can turn on your notifications, and that way you'll be kept in the loop. All right, so let's talk about season 10, episode 11 of The Real Housewives of Atlanta. And this episode was basically what we will call a friend intervention for Cythnia Bailey. So as you know by now, Cythnia and Peter are divorced, and she's been dating, and she recently met a guy by the name of Will Jones. Now this guy sort of came out of nowhere, and he's just sort of this Prince Charming who, does all the right things, says all the right things. He's perfectly groomed, he's thoughtful, charismatic, pretty much everything that you'd want a guy to be, right? In essence, he's too good to be true. Give me just 1 second. My apologies. It always seems like people want to call when you're doing something. Anyhow, the guy is basically too good to be true. And so we've been hearing... Okay, I hope there will be no further interruptions. So the guy is basically too good to be true. And everyone from Nene to Kandi has been sort of whispering in Cynthia's ear, sort of telling her... caveat emptor, basically buyer beware, because there's something about the guy that's a little suspect. So last night, Eva Pigford, I forget what her actual last name is currently, but Eva made her appearance, and we've all been waiting for Eva to come on the show. I was excited to see her. She came in with a boom. She looked amazing. Hair was amazing. Styling was amazing. Aesthetically, I just think Eva is stunning. So she came in. She and Nene came, had lunch, and they were discussing Cynthia's boyfriend, and Eva basically disclosed that she had had a prior interaction with Cynthia's boyfriend, and at the time she had met him, he was basically helping do some canvassing for her boyfriend who's running for mayor of Atlanta. And when she met him, he had had another woman, and he was talking about how amazing this woman was. In addition to mentioning how wonderful the woman was, he was talking about how great she was with his daughter. So that led Eva to believe that the two of them were really close and really had a really strong relationship because this woman had been formally introduced to Will's daughter. So fast forward to last night's episode where Cythnia, there's a party for Kandi. So Kandi had a photo shoot for Essence magazine. And so everyone showed up. Cynthia's there. She brings Will along. And of course, her relationship or her new relationship with Will is sort of fodder for the ladies. Everyone's sort of picking the relationship apart. And usually, I'm one of those people who I would probably just ignore the naysayers. And let me tell you this. One of the things, people are always critical of me because typically I don't like to date local men. I always tell people this. I don't do local talent. And the reason I say I don't do local talent is because very often when you date someone locally, you don't just date that person. You date that person's history. And case in point, Cythnia. Will could be a great guy. Now, I don't think he's a great guy just because it's not just about his history. It's about his duplicity. The man seems to be, he's not on the up and up. So on last night's episode, he and Cythnia were just talking about exclusivity and about the two of them dating and not seeing other people. And Cythnia was basically saying, hey, I'm just fresh out of a marriage. I want to take my time before I get back into something. I think you're a great guy. I don't want to stop, what's happening between the two of us. But I do want to still exercise the option to see other people. And he was sort of dismissive in the sense where he was like, well, I'm focused on you. Now, why men do this, I do not understand. This is a perfect opportunity for you to be completely candid, lay all the cards on the table, and just keep it 100 and say, look, I like to see other people as well. I'm not ready, or I'm potentially seeing another person. But rather than when she's giving him every opportunity to just be open and honest, he evades the question. He essentially misleads her. And all that evening or all that past episode, just more and more stuff about him started to trickle out. So now we see that Eva has a prior interaction with him and she's talking to people. And so Kenya pulls Cythnia outside at the party and says, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. This is what's happening. People are saying this about your man and you might want to be aware. So Will sort of, I guess he can sense the energy that something's wrong with Cythnia. He even says that her eyes are telling a different story from what's coming out of her mouth. And he follows Kenya and and Cythnia out on the patio of Kandis Party, and he basically is trying to control the narrative that is being created about him. So eventually Eva comes out and he summons Eva over to the conversation that he and Cythnia and Kenya are having, and says, you started this. And Eva, Eva didn't miss a beat. She said, well, this is messy. And she walks over and she just basically lays it all on the table. Look, dude, this is what it is. And she starts pulling out receipts from Instagram sort of to underscore her story and just, really help to reiterate the fact that, look, I don't have to lie to you. This is I actually have proof. And the moment she goes on the Instagram, you can hear him start to stutter and start to stammer over his words, and he's sort of backpedaling. And rather than just having an open conversation, like, he started to get very aggressive and very hostile. And in that moment, he really sort of had this Jekyll and Hyde personality that I personally saw. So I'm like, okay, this dude definitely is not who he pretends to be. So Cynthia's been dating his representative, and tonight we got the first glimpse into the true Will. Because there are a lot of men out there, right? And I call them great pretenders. And these are the men who know all the right things to do, all the right things to say, but at the end of the day, they're bad guys. They're wolves in sheep's clothing. And I think that Will is that type of guy where he knows what women like. He knows how to finagle women to essentially groom them to being as into them as he would like them to be. And Cythnia, to me, is so docile and so diminutive in terms of her personality that I think that she is primed for the picking. She's perfect prey for this sort of predatory behavior. And so it's great that she surrounds herself with really strong, assertive women, because those are the women who are basically insulating her from this type of guy. Now, here's what I hope. I hope that Cythnia is smart enough, because we see at the conclusion of this episode, we saw Portia say, oh, well, since you want to know everything, I heard something too. We haven't found out exactly what Portia's heard, but apparently she has to put a bug in Cynthia's ear as well. But all of the women are basically, like, all of the signs are out there. Run and run fast. And as women, sometimes the signs can be, smacking us in the face, and we'll choose to ignore them and focus on the good and the positive. Right now, before you're truly emotionally invested, this is when you withdraw and go the opposite direction. A, you're fresh out of a marriage. It's too soon to be that emotionally involved with anyone. B, I get that you're of a certain age and you're ready to sort of, connect with another person in a very intimate way. But my mother used to always tell me, what looks good to you may not be good for you. And Will is the encapsulation of that analogy, or that phrase, if you will. He looks good, but he is definitely not good for Cythnia, because he's not good for himself, because he's wearing a mask. He is not who he pretends to be. And if Cythnia chooses to move forward in this relationship, I don't want to see an episode, a year from now where she's, crying and boo-hooing about how he's, been cheating on her and abusing her, because right now you see exactly who he is. And right now you have an opportunity to run and run fast. So I hope she does. We will see how this episode concludes. Anyhow, you guys, that's how I feel about this relationship between Will and Cythnia. I want to know how you feel, so make sure you comment below. And that concludes this episode. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, and please share if you feel so inclined. Remember to follow me across all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. Also remember, it is better to be pissed off than it is to be pissed on. And as always, in closing, people, remember to live better, love harder, and think smarter. It is me, the Cerebral Diva. I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day. And as always, thank you for listening.